The main thing that keeps men stuck in sexual struggles is shame. It was almost like this voice from outside telling me you are not good enough. And that's why this happened. And since you're not good enough, it kind of becomes this sort of illogical, but sounds logical at the time. Train's like, since you're not good enough, you got to start changing yourself and you got to start proving yourself every chance you get.
The antidote to shame is curiosity. Shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad.
We always have something to watch or something to listen to. We've killed off our ability to really hear God on a regular basis. I try to do this myself. I try to at least spend 60 seconds of silence a day, because then if we could actually step into silence quicker and with more comfort, then we could really step into God's presence in that prayerful way.
When there's a lack of intimacy and they don't feel this connection with somebody, pornography tends to be the thing that they'll end up going to.
Really all we've done is strengthened our own will, and it's our own will that we need to actually surrender and let God do something with it.
We both make an impact significantly in men's lives, and you have the credentials for significant deep impact, right? You've done a lot of deep work. So let's talk about that for a moment. So you have a heart for serving men and helping men, and we're doing some of that same stuff. But how did you get into it? Why do you have a heart for it?
So the whole therapy world, if you talk to a therapist and you give them some truth serum, they'll tell you that every therapist is a little crazy, first of all, and we're trying to basically use the therapy world to fix ourselves.
Yeah, I can see that. That's funny.
So I'm still on that journey.
Yeah.
We're never finished products, but I had so many men invest in me when I was younger. From probably the first mentor, of course, was my dad, but then probably from age 13 on, there was just one after one after one who I look back and it was God just putting them in my path and showing me different aspects of what it means to be a man. So I looked back and I realized, well, I wasn't even trying to soak up that wisdom from them, but it stacked, and there were so many gaps in me that got filled because of all the different mentors that God brought. Because all of us have on a spectrum of perfect dad to just absent dad, there's no perfect dad other than God the Father. And so my dad was awesome, but his dad abandoned him and his family when he was 10. So he just didn't have a whole lot of equipping in certain areas. He had great equipping in others. So thankfully God brought me other mentors to fill in those gaps that he just didn't have the training for. And so anyway, I look back on those years, I'm like, man, if I could just pour into other people a little bit into the similar kind of ways that people poured into me all through my journey of growing up, then that'd be a dream. I would love it. And that's what I get to do every day. And I'm one of the few people that I know, at least, who I wake up, my feet hit the floor, and I'm actually looking forward to going to work. I don't even like calling it work just because I get to literally invest in people. So anyway, long answer to a short question, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah, there's something special about operating within your purpose that is transformational. And so you men poured into your life, which is amazing. I love that. You said when you were 13 was your first one. So I'm thinking about my son right now. He's 12. Yeah. And I'm mentoring him, but man, I really would love to have some other men pour into his life. Yes. And so I think he's right at that age. He's turning 13 in 2 days, actually. And so my goal is to be very intentional with what men I have him around, right? Some of our friends and some of the people even at Rise Up Kings, so that they can start to pour even more into him in a much more intentional way. Yeah. Like you said, it's transformational. It makes a huge impact. Yeah. And so now you're able to do that in men's lives, right? So you're able to be that mentor, that voice of reason, that sounding board, and the person that can help them get to the root. We talked about it earlier, how our behaviors stem from a root cause, but so often we're trying to fix the fruit. Right. We're trying to structure behavioral management techniques, when in reality we need to go a little bit deeper to shift the root cause of what is causing that behavior. And so many men are stuck in their lives right now because they are just managing behavior. Yeah. If you use church language, they would call it sin management. Yep. And behavior management, it's like arm wrestling with yourself, because
if I'm doing well and I'm having a good day, then I'm forcing that sort of bad side of me down into the ground. But then other days, the bad side of me wins and it's beating the good side of me. It's like all we're doing here is just back and forth and back and forth. And even if I win on most of the good days, I still know it's a whole lot of my own effort just trying to smush this stuff down. And eventually you either just give up or you have some sort of breakdown or, all kinds of different ways that could go. And so it finally dawned on me, all right, if I have a cold, the cough and the sneeze isn't the problem. I mean, I could take some meds for that to try to at least bring that down a little bit, but the virus is the problem. So I got to actually, what do I do about that? So my behavior, I can work really hard to keep it in check for a while, but eventually, boom, the water's going to break through that dam if there's nothing else. So like a lot of times we think, well, accountability, well, that's the answer. That needs to be maybe 10 to 15% of the answer. But if that's 100% of somebody's strategy for actually how to transform their life, I'm sorry, but like accountability is going to break because you didn't deal with the root. The source of that water is still pushing against that dam. And if the accountability is the only dam, boom, it's going to have an explosion. So yeah, one of my favorite things is to help guys and the women that I get to work with, but especially guys that we think that our own strength, our own effort can transform us and just stop the thing we're trying to stop or start the thing we're trying to start. And I'm like, go ahead, keep trying. So sometimes I have to just take my hands off of and say like, all right, keep going. Just let me know when you're ready to try something else, because at some point they're ready to stop digging that hole deeper and deeper. Because that's all it is. It's our own self effort that can work for a little while. And then after that little while, really all we've done is strengthened our own will. And it's our own will that we need to actually like surrender and let God do something with it. But if it's me just trying harder, for some people that can work for a couple of years, some people work for a couple of months, but eventually we're going to end up in the same spot of like, all right, I can't do this myself.
So as a licensed therapist, right, you spend a lot of time probably digging, right, uncovering, discovering, and allowing God to create some revelation inside of people. And so there is one of our there are 6 keys to transformation and long-term change. And this is what we teach at one of our events. One is clarity, having clarity on the direction that you want to go, right? The goals, the clarity on where you're going. Number 2 is mindsets. So really what we're talking about, digging deep into the mindsets, the belief systems that are driving behavior is such a critical aspect of long-term change. Yes. I would say that's probably one of the biggest ones. And number 3 is habits. So developing lifelong habits that can shift your character, because habits eventually turn into character. Number 4 is associations. Being around like-minded people that are changing or are where you want to be. Right? This is the key to long-term change. Number 5 is accountability, like you talked about. I think it's a key part of long-term change, having people around you, but it's a smaller part of it. Right. And then number 6 is tracking. I'm a big tracker, so if there's any long-term shift I want to have, I'm going to have some tracking, maybe on a spreadsheet or my app or somewhere where I'm consistent. I'm creating some consistency with that. So those are the 6, what we call the 6 keys to long-term transformation. And mindset is, I say, probably one of the biggest ones. Right. And it's the area that a lot of people get stuck on. So how does one discover the mindsets or the areas of their life that are preventing long-term change? Yeah, first of all, it might go into the clarity piece. Tell me more about the clarity part, and then that may feed us into mindset. So clarity, so it's important. Clarity taps into our reticular activating system, or RAS. So it tells our brain what to not delete, what information to not delete, right? And so it's very important to get clear on and a clear vision of where you want to go in your life. Otherwise, you need your habits to align with some vision. Right? If your vision is to have a great body, that's great, and then you can start to shift your habits to match that. So really, clarity is all around goal setting and vision. Like where am I going, and then I'm going to line up those other keys in alignment with that. Good. Okay, that's what I was wondering, because what I found is I can help somebody work on their mindset all I want, but if they don't have a vision, a direction they're trying to head, then their mindset it's really hard for them to even examine, because it's kind of like if you
you can look at your GPS, but if you don't have a destination plugged in, it doesn't really matter all the different turns along the way.
Yep.
So yeah, I love that clarity side. I would be curious though, let's take somebody they're setting a goal for physical health. If their goal is to have a great body, do you ask them to dig deeper into why they want the great body, or you just kind of let them run with that at first?
No, we definitely some why is a key part of that.
Okay. Yeah. Cause that's one thing I've found is with, especially with men, we think if I could just be ripped, rich, and getting laid, then that would fix everything.
Yeah.
so I
they
love,
might not say it, but that's what they're thinking.
Right.
Or that's right. That's what they know. That's their truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So like when I'm helping them kind of, I don't use the term clarity as much, but I might steal that from you guys. But when I'm helping them cast that vision or find that clarity, I love when they're starting to look at goals, and whether it be physical health or whatnot. And so at first I just let them have that goal, and I don't really push back against it if I know I'm going to see them for a few weeks, because I want them to have at least some sort of sea legs underneath them. Like, okay, I've set a goal, I've started moving that direction. And then if I know that there's probably needs to be an adjustment to that goal, or at least a change in motivation to the goal, then I'll start asking those kind of challenging questions about like, why do you want the great body? And just see what ultimately it's all about, like what they think is going to fulfill them or make them feel like the man or fix them. So yeah, the clarity piece is essential to that.
What do you think is doing a hard shift on like sexual addiction and just extreme challenges with lust or maybe pornography or the constant urge?
Yep.
What have you seen after working with many men in your practice? What are some of the root causes? Well,
that takes us actually back into that mindset question.
Yeah.
Is that both in the research and in my anecdotal experience, just in my own life, because I've put a lot of my own story out there in video. The sexual realm or the sexual temptation is the biggest one that I've had to fight, and I'm far from. I will never say I've fully defeated that, because the minute I do, I'm sure it's like, no, it's coming right back. So I've found that there are parts of us that basically kind of send thoughts to our brain. So when I look at mindset, one of the things I try to help everybody understand is that you're not your thoughts, and not every thought you have is true.
So good.
Yeah.
I did a whole training on that, man. There's a lot of people that get really jacked up when they think bad thoughts,
right?
Or they have an intrusive thought, and then they feel guilty about this random thought. It's like, you are not your thoughts. Oh, it's so good.
What do you do for them when they have that realization?
I'm training them that they're not their thoughts, and that intrusive thoughts are okay. And that's part of being a human being. It's almost like we share thoughts as humanity, right? They just kind of transfer through generations. They transfer from human to human. So an intrusive thought needs to just be. We need to allow it to pass. And if we continue to have the same intrusive thoughts over an extended period of time, there might be some root there.
Yeah.
Right. There may be some root that's worth discovering or exploring. Like, I wonder if this. But in general, intrusive thoughts are just a part of humanity. So that what you resist persists.
Amen.
Right. So the more you resist something, it tends to push back on you, and you'll have more of it.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, when we freak out about a thought, then there's parts of us that are thinking, oh no, we're in danger.
Yep.
I use the language of parts just because I'm trained in this thing called IFS, and it's a type of therapy, but it's been really transformational for me. And the easiest way to understand it is, have you ever seen the movie Inside Out, or either one of them? It's that.
Yep.
I went through 5 years of grad school, and they, in 2-hour movies.
Yeah, they did a good job on that.
Yes, they did. It was genius. So, but that really is how our nervous system works. There's parts that are responsible for different things, and there are different parts that shoot up different thoughts. And as you said, there's so many thoughts that just get passed on to us from generations, or just from culture. And so a lot of times a thought is like, that part is essentially offering up a shirt for you to try on. Like, hey, is this the thought that you want? And then if not, then they'll keep on throwing different thoughts just to see, hey, is this what you need? And then other thoughts, like you said, the ones that are persisting, those are usually coming from different parts they're probably carrying around some sort of burden or some sort of wound. And that thought is their way of trying to get your attention, to say like, hey, pay attention. It's like, if you take a lust thought, of course there's a physical element. We want to feel good physically. Never want to discount that. And then when you get underneath that, it's usually something in us that needs some sort of connection or acceptance. And that part, it knows that the unhealthy sexual behavior isn't the best option, but it's like, look, we got an injury in here and this is the only way we know how to do it. So like, here, try this. And that a lot of times in a sexual thought, that compulsion tends to drive from that injury or that wound inside. Is like, there's a part in you that just doesn't know any better, but you as the real you, the person who's God has placed his thumbprint on, you can go and father that part of you and help it realize like, hey, I know you're hurt. I know you're hurting. I know there's an injury and we're going to work through that. But this thing you're trying to offer up as the solution, it actually isn't the solution. It's just going to keep us stuck. And if you treat those thoughts like little kids that just don't know any better, then a lot of times they're less intimidating and they're a whole lot easier to change and adjust.
Versus feeling shame and guilt because you had a thought.
Yes.
And dude, there's some wacky thoughts that pop in, right, people's minds. And there's been some ridiculous, crazy thoughts that have came into my mind where I'm like, that is dark and twisted, and I'm surprised that came into my mind. But I do my best, right, to not allow guilt or shame to come in if I have a random, right, intrusive thought that is just dark.
Yes.
Right. And so, but the tendency is to feel guilt. So I allow God into those thoughts too, right? So I'll bring God and I'll hand that thought over to God.
Yeah.
In Jesus' name, right? And I shift my mentality and I just allow that to pass and I allow God to take those thoughts from me. So I have almost a physical representation of that. If there's a thought that comes into my head, that's just random.
You're taking every thought captive, right?
Yep.
And that's, what is that? 2 Corinthians 10, I think.
And captive doesn't mean that you hold on to it and sit with it, right? I think people miss that. They're like, take it captive, like just own that thought. Nope. Taking a captive means allowing it to pass where it doesn't own you.
Yes.
Right. We want to own it more than it owns us. So how do we own those thoughts? We allow them to pass, or we use it as a little check engine light. When there's patterns, right? If it's a pattern thought, like, okay, interesting. Maybe there's something here and we do it out of curiosity, not out of shame.
Yes.
So the antidote to shame is what we teach is curiosity.
Yes.
So as opposed to going, hey, like something's wrong with me. It's like, huh, interesting. I wonder why. I wonder where that thought came from. More curious versus shame focused.
Yes. You're hitting the root. I wish more therapists would think like that. So, because we're speaking the same language. You probably know this, but the main thing that keeps men stuck in sexual struggles is shame. And so curiosity is the antidote, at least the first antidote. Because if you can't get out of your own way and stop beating yourself up, then just quit trying.
Shame spirals and shame cycles. It is devastating for people in any kind of addiction.
Right.
It keeps them any kind of a negative sin pattern. It really keeps them stuck. And so then once so if someone's dealing with sexual sin, lust, pornography, right, and they start to get curious, right, they're allowing shame not to own them.
Right.
What are some of those roots that you've seen?
Typically it's rejection. So for me in my story, I remember in 4th grade, I was the only new student that was in the school. Like everybody else had been together since kindergarten. So they had years together and they all knew each other. And here I was on the first day of school. I was already nervous. Like, am I going to fit in? Is anybody going to like me? Just all the thoughts that, I mean, we don't just have them as elementary school students. I mean, I still have them to this day if I walk into a new situation, like a little bit of trepidation. So it's not as bad as it used to be. But I remember walking, it was the first class of the day was gym class. And I remember walking down a set of steps to get into the gym, walking toward a circle of my classmates, just sitting there talking to each other. And I got closer and closer. And as I got close enough to start to sit down with the group, this one guy, this is a 4th grader again, one guy looks up at me and he goes, "Damn, I'm glad I'm not looking into a mirror right now." And as I look back, I'm like, that's a pretty clever insult for a 4th grader. But it's like in that moment, I wish some sort of trap door could have opened up where I could have just disappeared, because I felt this like vortex open up in my chest and everybody was laughing, guys and girls. And I was flooded in that moment. And I had no idea that that moment really made some sort of lasting impact on me, because I really didn't think much about it after that. But as I looked back, around my like late 20s, early 30s, when I started to really try to start changing some of my behavior, that moment came back to me. I was like, oh, in that moment, I started making decisions like, well, I better just avoid being the new guy, and I better do something to like impress people and make them think I'm the man. And that looked different ways as I got older. But the thing that I realized was, it wasn't so much the events, getting made fun of, getting laughed at. Like, obviously that was bad, but it was the meaning that I attached.
Yep, the belief. And I'm curious, that was my next question. So what we found is so much of our behavior stems, most of our belief systems, I'd say 80-85% stem from 8 to 12 to 14 years old. Like most of our belief systems are like locked in.
Yeah.
And most human beings never go back and reprogram. And go back and go, shoot, what belief did I make up? What meaning did I make up at that time when my parents got divorced, or when I got rejected from that? So have you discovered, like, what belief did you make up?
The biggest, there were probably 3 or 4, but the biggest one was that it was almost like this voice from outside telling me, you are not good enough. And that's why this happened. And since you're not good enough, it kind of becomes this sort of illogical, but sounds logical at the time. Train is like, since you're not good enough, you got to start changing yourself, and you got to start proving yourself every chance you get. And so for me, hookups became one of the ways that I accomplished that. Other ways I would keep trying to prove myself, didn't work. Like I played baseball, but wasn't that great at it, so I had to keep looking for ways that I could quote unquote succeed. So
getting the girl was your way of proving yourself to yourself.
Good enough. And as I look at it, because that age range you talked about, it's absolutely the case. Like they're the most formative events definitely happen in that age range. But what we found in the research is from birth to age 10, those events, even though they seem more minor and less impactful, those actually were the deepest roots. And then the seemingly bigger events that do happen in that like 8 to 14 to 16 range, they just really get piled on top of that initial memory. And you basically, like, there's this type of therapy called EMDR where you can go through all the memories from like later in your life if you want to, but until you get to that earliest core memory, no major shift is going to happen. So a lot of times I'll tell guys, all right, let's skip the major stuff, the stuff that seems like it's really holding you back, and let's get to the earliest thing that might seem minor, because if we can trip that domino, then these other major events may not cause you as much of an issue, and they'll be easier to clean up.
You know, it's interesting. So what's coming up for me right now is that the pattern of lust and sexual sin is it usually stems from some sort of rejection or trauma, right? It could have been molestation or something else. It could have been some significant thing, or it could have been, rejection is significant in a kid's mind at that moment. It's the most significant thing. But what's interesting, and I'm processing that right now is, so yes, we can have patterns of, I think I lost the thought. It was so good. It's so we can have patterns of lust, right? When we get older, that stem from that. But even thought patterns can stem from those things, right? Because what happens is we learn to cope a certain way, and our brain knows that if I think this thought, it will get me out of it, or it will get me that dopamine hit, or it will, as an example, right? I was working out yesterday, and I was pushing really hard, and I was having some random intrusive thoughts of quitting. Like I have to use the bathroom. I was throwing up thoughts. Trying to get me to quit. I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing it, dude. It was just tossing up thoughts. And so my brain, before, I guess I had used those, right, to stop. And so it's like, oh, I can get Skylar to stop and to be comfortable by throwing out this thought. And so what's happened is we may have had coping mechanisms and used those thoughts as a kid, right? Those thoughts may have brought us a certain level of comfort, and then now that thought pattern is now ingrained. That neural pathway is ingrained, where now it's just become a pattern of coping, right? With thoughts even, but even, it doesn't even have to be behavior, right? It can be thoughts.
Just thoughts.
That like, and I've seen that before with people that have been bullied. They had a thought pattern of thinking of revenge or running away. And so what happens is in intense situations where they feel out of control, those thoughts start triggering.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Those the thought of running away, or the thought of like revengeful thoughts.
Right.
You know, so people wonder, well, hey, why do I have these revengeful thoughts? Well, you learned that as a kid. That made you feel better.
Yeah.
Right. When you're 8 years old or 10 years old and someone's bullying you, you can't do a lot. So you imagine, right, what you would do to that guy.
Right. And our bodies, both our bodies and our brains, they have a hard time figuring out what's imagined and what's real.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So especially when we're young, we learn this habit of, well, we can escape through these thoughts, or we can bring comfort through these thoughts. It's the same reason horror movies work. Like, logically, we know that's happening on a screen. It's not real, but there's something in us that it starts to get activated. Like, this murderer might come after me, kind of thing. So yeah, the thoughts can definitely be that, but I think you touched on it. Number one, comfort often is one of the biggest needs that's going on under the surface when there's sexual thoughts. And the whole, at least for me, the thing that helped me and that has helped other guys that I've worked with is when we're trying to get to the root of it, the thoughts definitely are important, but let's figure out, what did I need in the moment? And then we can build it from there. Like, hey, here was the need. So let's say it was comfort, then what were my thoughts that ended up leading to some of those sexual thoughts or behaviors? But let's focus on the comfort. So for example, one of my friends, he's got the same kind of sexual pattern thing going on, and he's been trying to stop it. And one of the first times that he actually zoomed out to try to get to the root issue, he called me the next morning after a hookup. He goes, why did I do this? I just reached out to this girl and like, I can't explain why. Well, so I asked him like, well, what happened in the day or two leading up to it? And 2 or 3 different things had happened. He had a family member pass away and made a bad grade on a test in college, like just stressors that had piled up. And he didn't put 2 and 2 together, but a lot of times, somebody can objectively look at your situation and say, well, this is it. And so, yeah, he was looking for comfort, and in his mind had been trained because of the trauma that he had lived through, like real trauma. His mind had been trained to go to thoughts of escape and physical closeness and intimacy. So it just ran that same pattern. And again, those were parts in him that were actually trying to be helpful. They were trying to bring him comfort. They weren't trying to hurt him. So we were able to, with curiosity, like you said, take him back to those places that needed the comfort and say, hey, look, I know you're hurting. Thanks for helping. It's like you're literally like talking to yourself. You're using imagination, talking to parts. And it helped him realize like, okay, I don't have to beat myself up for this. I can actually bring curiosity and compassion and invite God into these wounds, because I think if he had not reached out to me or whoever, he would have just stayed into why did I just do this? And then the shame factor would have been piled high. And then a month later, he'd have found himself in the same situation with still no answers. So yeah, to me, it's get to that. What is the need? What was that?
So those thoughts can be check engine lights, right? That's like, hey, there's something else going on here.
Right.
Doesn't mean just because you have a thought doesn't mean you take the action on that thought. It's a little check engine light. And I love what you talk about your needs, right? So what I found with married men is when they don't feel either when there's a lack of, there's a couple things, but when there's a lack of intimacy and they don't feel this connection with somebody, pornography tends to be the thing that they'll end up going to. Right? When they're not feeling that connection, they want intimacy. Like, guys may not mention that, but we want emotional connection. We desire that. And when we feel like we're not getting that, or we feel alone, then we'll turn to whatever pattern we've turned to before.
Absolutely.
That has brought us a fake feeling of intimacy or connection.
Right. Yeah. Here's one thing I've realized. Whenever I'm in a cycle moving towards some sort of sexual sin, or I've seen it in other people too, it's really the same pattern of like, I want to be respected and I do want intimacy and connection, but like you said, we don't really use that language. But
No.
But one of the things I realized is like I want this in my mind. This is the picture I have is I want the FBI or whoever to come into a room and say, Trey, we've got a case. We really need your help. Come with us. Because I want to feel like the man.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to be able to come through. And there's a lot of intimacy that comes with that because it's respect. It's connection with people that are leaning on me and me leaning on them. And so, yeah, when we don't get that in a marriage in a daily way, there's gaps in there that have to be filled. And again, those parts know that the gaps have to be filled, and sometimes they don't know any better way other than the sexual way.
Yeah, my old pattern was when I didn't get that fulfillment in my marriage was to try to turn to pornography or to start imagining things, right? This was an old pattern that I had when I didn't feel respected or I was just lacking some connection.
Yep.
And so what I've learned to do now is if I'm lacking connection and I can tell and I can feel lustful thoughts starting to creep in, and my mind's starting to mess with me, it's trying to go to that old pattern, right?
Yep.
When I feel that happening, I know that's the check engine light. And so I'll go have a conversation with Jessica and say, hey, babe, I love you. And I could use some connection. Like, let's connect.
So good.
You know, so I'll lean in versus leaning out,
Yes.
which has been transformational inside of our marriage. The other way, leaning out, was very destructive and caused a lot of damage in our marriage.
Yep.
And leaning in, man, is a solution, because then once I get that connection with her, right, whether it's physical intimacy that we get to have or whether it's some emotional disconnection, I'm better. I feel great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's up to me, though, to go seek that out, not wait for her.
Oh, yeah.
To go, like, she doesn't know what's
she
going
read your
on.
mind.
No, she doesn't know what's going on inside me. I'm like dealing with all of this, right? Stress, lack of respect. I'm not feeling connected. She doesn't know what's going on, but I need to let her know what's happening inside of me.
Yeah.
And I think some marriages are probably lacking that ability to communicate, but it's necessary, man. If you're listening to this podcast and you want a long-term marriage that is successful and healthy and strong, like having that open line of communication when you have a need, when you have a need that's not getting met, it's not your wife's fault, but it's just not getting met at that moment, or you need more of it. I've realized for me, there's months, or there's seasons where I have more sexual drive. My testosterone's higher. And so I notice it, like my desire is actually increased.
Yep.
And then there'll be other seasons where it's not. Right. But when it's increased, like I gotta I have to, it's my job now to go make more of an effort to connect sexually with Jessica.
Yeah.
And to connect more, even emotionally, to drive that sexual connection. Because otherwise, I might try to lean out. So I need to know, like, I can feel, and I know now I know it's a pattern where I'm able to go, okay, interesting. I think I have a higher drive right now. Okay, that means I lean into Jessica.
How did you first start building that self-awareness to even identify the need? Because that's a big tripping point for most people, especially men.
I noticed it took me years, many years. This is probably within the last 3 years, I would say, that I actually can catch now when my testosterone seems to be increasing in that moment, or something's happening where the drive is increasing. And so it usually starts with some desire to lust. I'll desire to look at a woman a little bit longer, or my mind might want to wander for a second, and I'll catch it, right? I'll catch it and I'll go, interesting. I wanted to look at that woman a little longer. And so I'm like, okay. And so I just, if I start to feel that for a couple days, then I realize, okay, I need something right now. Something's not getting met, or my desire's increased.
What about the times when you know it's respect you need, or connection? How did you build that awareness to see that was the need?
That's good. I don't know. I don't exactly know but I can tell the feeling. I can tell when I feel. I use the check engine light. I use my whatever's happening either with my thoughts or my behaviors. To look inward and go, what's happening inside? What needs aren't being met right now? And so it's a feeling. I can tell when I feel either a little bit lonely, or if I feel a lack of respect, and that a lack of respect could come from me not producing my own results in business. Right? It's not always just somebody disrespecting me.
Right.
It could be when I don't feel like I'm the man.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's not anybody else's fault.
Right.
and there's a way that I could still lean into key relationships when I do feel that.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because even after I became a therapist, identifying my own needs was the biggest tripping point in me, because I had basically cut myself off from the neck down. I was just all in my head and had no idea that there is a huge mind-body connection. I was just always intellectualizing things, just trying to figure it out. And at some point I realized, like, all right, the answers are not all up in my head. They're also in my body. And if we really want to get geeky, there are brain cells in our stomach and brain cells in our heart. And so I just started connecting into those. But once I started to, I Googled this thing called the Wheel of Needs. And it's this literally a wheel, and it has like probably 100 different emotional and physical needs. And I started realizing, okay, there's like 8 or 9 of these needs that tend to, fit better for me. And once I realized, all right, it's probably one of those 8 or 9 needs, I became so much better at realizing, like, okay, boom, check engine light.
You had a bucket to put it in now.
Exactly,
right?
A bucket to put it in.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I try to help men do, is like realize, all right, well, not just what's going on in your head, but also what's the need that your body is trying to fulfill. Obviously, if it's sex, it's partly physical, but as we know, it's connection, it's respect, it's all the other things. But let me ask you this: when you're teaching men about the words shame and connection or intimacy, do you get any pushback with that? Because I get pushback, especially on the term shame. That I've found that for whatever reason, men don't really resonate with that.
No, not too often. I don't think guys understand shame, right? Like what you're talking about. They push back on it because they don't understand it. I would say they don't get how it's showing up in their body, right? They don't understand the feeling of shame that's happening inside of them. It's like it's a visceral experience. It's and I'm sure you can relate to this, or maybe even share this, but shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad, right? So guilt, it's okay to feel guilt in a moment, but then move on. Shame's rarely ever like beneficial, especially if we're Christians, right? Because our identity is in Christ, which we are redeemed. So I'm not bad. And there's a lot of preachers that preach, right? Hey, you're bad, you're a sinner. It's like, I get it, and no, not as a new creation in Christ. And so it's like, no, I'm redeemed. Like spiritually, I am clean. I'm covered in the blood. I am fully redeemed. Like I'm not a wretched man. I'm not a wretched man. And so that identity is really, really key. So shame is I am bad. So like something's inherently wrong with me is like the shame. And so I think a lot of guys don't understand shame. We might even talk about shame. I don't really get a lot of pushback, but until we start to explain shame a little bit more and show that shame's really how you can see shame show up in your life is when you take out the hammer. So the guys that tend to take out the hammer on themselves and kind of beat themselves up tend to be more shame ridden.
Heck yeah. And it is that I am bad, and you could fit other phrases in there. Like
what are some other phrases?
For me, going back to that 4th grade story, is I'm not good enough. Just that shame of being not enough. For me, at least in anecdotal experience, most of the men that I work with, that is probably the most common version of the shame of it all. But it is, I think the term, we need a new term for shame, because I think when men hear that, we just repel, like, no, I'm not ashamed. It's just,
we don't want to put that on.
Right.
We don't want to wear the shame shirt. It's embarrassing. Luckily in our events, guys are very open, and like we dig deep. So they roll with it.
Right.
But what other, have you thought about another word or another?
I haven't, because it's just been the last couple months that I've started realizing this. So I'm going to start thinking more and asking more people.
Shame. People don't want to put on that shirt and wear that word shame. So when they try it on, they're not going to like that unless they're in the right environment.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's a relevant conversation, right? Sexual addiction. I've seen that sexual addiction, sexual sin tends to be the thing that haunt men the most out of anything else. And so much of it stems from that unworthiness, right? And so that belief, like you talked about earlier, it could be something simple like a buddy not wanting to hang out when you're 8 years old, or saying or watching or noticing a buddy, you're in a conversation, the guy walks away and goes to another guy. That little thing as an 8-year-old could then set the trajectory of that 8-year-old off on the I'm not worthy, or something's wrong with me, or people don't like me, or there's something there, right? And there's not a way to fix that, right? I'm acutely aware of that with my kids. And I'd love it if they didn't have that as a pain point. It's gonna happen. I see it. I already see it. One of my boys, it's already there. It's locked in.
What do you do about it?
I continuously speak life into him and intentionally shift him, because what happens too is our brain is always looking for evidence to prove beliefs right.
That's it.
Right. And so I liken it to a table with legs. So our brain, right, has this belief. And if there's a belief, maybe I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or people don't like me as much as other people, that belief, as soon as that belief, there's evidence, there's one piece of evidence for that little kid walking away and talking to another buddy, a leg is put in. And so what our brain does is, our brain's job is to prove beliefs true. And so it's going to now start searching for evidence. And so now it's going to notice another guy, that another time it happens, and another time, and each time that happens, it's another leg. And that leg, and next thing you know, that table's got 30 legs on it, and it is strong as heck.
It's a stronghold, what the Bible would call it.
It's a stronghold. Yep, exactly. And that, it's not going anywhere unless there's some intentional effort around that. And so the way to break free is to throw out another idea of another possible belief, right? And this, well, first off, ask, is that true? Is that belief true? Am I not worthy? And then we have to find a way we have to create a gap in there where it's like not true. And if we can see it's not true, then we can throw up an alternative belief. Like, okay, maybe I am worthy. What if I am worthy? Or what if I am loved? Or what if people do actually like me? And so we throw that up, and then we have to intentionally find evidence for that new belief. But like, it takes work. Oh, there it is. Oh, a time that I was worthy, a time that I was good enough, a time that I was smart, a time that I'm good at numbers. Oh, there was a time that, and so we start finding those evidence until there's so many more legs that we've broken off the other legs, that new belief takes hold and locks. And that's my strategy, or how I integrate new belief systems within human beings. And so with Brendan, that's the kid that so I'm noticing him have some core beliefs that aren't effective for him, and he's catching evidence and collecting evidence. So I'm intentionally finding ways to break those legs and to throw up new evidence. Hey, dude, did you notice that? Hey, did you notice that? How those your kids were the other boys were following you in that moment? Hey, did you notice this? So I'm intentionally working my way to see if I can counteract that belief.
Oh man,
it's some work, but it's and I'm not going to be perfect, and he's going to have to go do some deep work. All of us will. Like when we become adults, man. Some more than others, though. Some more than others, right? The more issues / trauma you go through, it can take years of unwinding, and it's not a bad thing. Maybe. Right, there's purpose in your pain. Maybe God's allowing you, like with you, right? The things you've gone through, God's allowed you to go through those, so you can now go serve other people.
You're most able to help the person you used to be. So you're qualified because of the pain to help somebody else that maybe nobody else is going to be able to relate to them, but you will because of what you went through. But with your own story, I remember you talked about a few minutes ago about just some of your own, whether it be lust struggles or any other kind of struggles that are rooted in past events. What's one technique or experience that's been especially healing for you?
Journaling and prayer. Nice. So what I'll do is, when I notice that there is a something that is hindering me, like either a belief or some experience or some past thing that's happened, I visualize myself giving that up to God, and then I journal through why God allowed that to happen, and that God most likely is allowing this to happen so I can go serve other people. So I process through that, so it allows me to release that pain. And so journaling and prayer are like my two top tools, I would say, for me to process through most things.
That's awesome. Have you ever heard of the it's called different things, but what I call it is the mountaintop experience, or the mountaintop drill, so to speak?
No, tell me more.
It sounds kind of like what you're doing is you visually walk up a mountain where Jesus is at the cross, and you're bringing the thing that you want him to heal or the thing that you want to get rid of, and you visualize yourself laying that thing right there at the cross that he's on and allowing him to take it, to do whatever he needs to do with it. And then you walk back down the mountain into your quote unquote normal life. And I'm not claiming it's a one shot thing.
Yes.
There's almost never going to be like a zap like that. There can be, but that's one of the exercises that I found, at least in my life and other people. It sounds similar to what you're talking about, I think. If I'm hearing
I love it. Yep, one of my visualizations with real heavy burdens is I'll visualize me walking with a backpack. And so I'll have a backpack with rocks and that represent those things, and it's weighing me down. And then I visualize Jesus next to me, and he's like, "I want your burdens." And so I take off my backpack and I hand it to him, and he puts it on. And then he carries those burdens, and I'm released of those burdens. So I love the mountaintop, though. That's a very special experience, because then you can label each of those things and see them right placed at the foot of the cross as he takes those, and then a representation of walking back down to your life is a fantastic. Do you walk clients through anything?
I do, yeah. I love.
Powerful.
It is powerful. There's so much that happens because of our imagination, and I'm not going to claim to understand how this works, but I know God gave us an imagination for a reason, and He made it powerful. And I think it's been so hijacked by, I think 90% of the time we misuse our imagination on lust and fear. And if we could actually free up our imagination to use it in some ways that God really intended, who knows what could happen with that?
It's amazing. Yeah, we do a lot of visualization. Some really cool experiences at some of our events. Are there any other neat visualizations that you walk clients through that are pretty impactful?
You know, the most common one I take them through, it's not necessarily a specific picture, but I'll start with, if they're a believer, I'll start with a verse. And they pick the verse and they just say the verse a few times out loud and then a few times to themselves. And then I ask them to ask God to give them a picture of Himself, of whatever maybe the verse was talking about. And 90% of the time that actually happens in that client's mind. And then we just step into that interaction or whatever picture God gave them in that moment, because whatever He creates in that moment is obviously what that person needs. So,
well, the Holy Spirit, right, is present inside of us, so He'll offer up memories and thoughts and images that we may need to or have the ability to process through.
Oh yeah, and I think in our culture where we always have something to watch or something to listen to, I think we've killed off our ability to really hear God on a regular basis. So I try to do this myself, is I try to at least spend 60 seconds of silence a day. Not even necessarily trying to pray or anything. I'm just trying to retrain my brain that, hey, silence is good. Because then if we could actually step into silence quicker and with more comfort, then we could really step into God's presence in that prayerful way. But let me ask you this, because a lot of clients that I've seen, they will beat themselves up if the spiritual exercise didn't work, so to speak. If they didn't work in the time that they thought it should, or in the way that they thought it should. So sometimes some spiritual hurt can come from some of these exercises that didn't go as they thought it would. Y'all ever encounter that?
Yeah, so that's the challenge. I mean, that's a common challenge, especially around healing, right? When you really go all in on God's ability to heal and then you don't get healed.
Right.
Then there can be a lot of resentment and disdain towards God. And yeah, I'm sure people do that. And I'm conscious to not do that, because I'm a teacher. So I'm always teaching people new ways and techniques of encountering God and connecting with God. And so I'm actually learning one right now. So this morning I got a book. I met this guy, Bob Boudin, and he wrote a book called The Two Chairs. And it's he started doing this maybe 50 years ago, and his mom did it. And basically you place another chair next to you and you imagine God is in that chair, and you visualize God in that chair, and you come every single morning and you ask God questions, and He reveals and speaks to you through and God doesn't usually speak through He doesn't speak audibly to most people. He speaks through. Then I ask this. I ask this at my events, right? Where is God? God God is all around us and inside of us. The Holy Spirit's inside of us. So therefore, a lot of the answers that we're searching for come from within, not from without.
Yep.
They don't come from without, they come from within.
Yeah.
And so it's like those thoughts that you have, chances are they could be the Holy Spirit when you're in tune with the Spirit. And so it's learning to listen internally, not for a voice, but for images, for thoughts that God is revealing things to you. And so so this morning, so I'm reading the book and I want to practice it. And so I have a good time with God each morning where I pray and I journal, but I don't have as much back and forth conversation as I would like to. And so I'm like, game on, baby.
Yeah.
And so I practiced this morning. I sat there and I did my journaling. So I wasn't able to like just talk randomly. So I had to ask the questions and I wrote them out. And I do best hearing from God through writing or through journaling on my computer.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm practicing right now, though. I'm practicing that. I'm gonna open that pathway up with God, so we can have more of a deep daily encounter where I can hear from God on a daily basis through just different revelation. But today was it was a challenge, right? Learning that new habit. And so it's probably going to be a challenge moving forward until I really get used to it. I'm saying that so people know if they're trying something new, if they're encountering God in new ways, just roll with it. Like, it's not going to be perfect. You have to, some things happen right away, and some things it takes many, many tries before you can get it.
Yeah. I mean, for somebody like you to say, like, I don't hear from God conversationally, like I would think somebody might see somebody like you in a leadership position and think, well, he's got it all figured out. He hears from God like that, and everything's good. So I love that you said it. No. And you helped me think of another exercise. There's one that one of my friends who's also a therapist taught me. It's called the flame of light exercise. And since the Bible talks about God's Spirit oftentimes being represented as a flame, you close your eyes and you imagine that a little tiny spark is somewhere in your kind of middle of your chest region. And then you imagine that flame. You kind of let the vision happen, but you ask God to
should we just do it right now?
Sure. Let's do it. I like it. Okay.
Yeah, let's roll with it.
All right.
I'm gonna go with it too.
Yeah, let's do it. All right.
Lead the way.
All right. So let's close our eyes and let's just take a couple breaths first. And we'll try to breathe to where the air gets sent to our stomach. And then we breathe it out through our mouth. And it always helps if you can breathe out for 8 seconds if you're trying to relax. So let's try to do that. And now let's just turn our attention to the middle of our body, somewhere around our chest, and let's ask God to, Lord, just come into this vision with us and be that fire that you say that you are inside of us, and help us to see that fire in us. And this could be the picture he gives you. It could be a match. It could be a spark. It could be any sort of a flame, but just let that image come. And let's just ask God to now grow that flame. So Lord, consume us. Take over the parts of our body that you want to inhabit, and burn off the things that are in the way. And let's just take a few seconds and allow that to happen. Sometimes, if you can sit here long enough as this flame expands, you can start to feel maybe a little bit of a heat sensation or a tingling sensation. And then many times there will be parts in our body that feel like they're kind of blocking the flame. So Lord, show us, as this flame expands, show us the parts in us that are blocking or resisting you and resisting the fire. And if you find one of those places, we bring curiosity, just like we talked about. We just say, all right, Lord, help us figure this out. What is this spot in me? Is this an emotion? Does it have any sort of physical sensation? Is it cold, maybe it's heavy, maybe it's sharp, have some sort of shape to it. What is this? Is it emotion? Is it a past memory? Maybe it's a part that needs attention. Maybe some sort of wound or trauma, even little t traumas. Lord, help us identify that. What is this? And now, Lord, what would you say to us right now? What would you say about this part or about how you see us? Lord, you are the only Father that is perfect, that can give us what we need. And Lord, help us soak up your presence and be more and more connected to you and in you. So Lord, help us to carry your presence in the form of this flame wherever we go, and whenever we find ourselves wandering from you or triggered in some way, help us to just gently turn back to this flame. And in you we can find the warmth and the comfort and everything that we need. And then help us to keep coming back to the spots that are being blocked. Help us to keep coming back to those spots with just curiosity and compassion. And we trust that you'll help us understand what needs to happen in those places as well. So Lord, we love you and we thank you for loving us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So
love it.
That's like a starting point of an exercise, and we ran through it quicker than I would normally run through.
So if you were with a client, I'm imagining you'd process through the things that are happening and help gain some clarity.
In the moment, I would be asking the client, still with their eyes closed, like, where do you notice the flame moving? What are you feeling? And if they find a spot that's blocked, we would just be curious, and I'd ask them some questions about that spot, and we'd invite God into that.
Yeah.
So, but that little exercise, you can at least tailor it to whatever you need.
Love it, man. Yeah. I felt it blocked around my stomach. It was interesting. I got curious about that. And I have some challenges right now with some eating patterns that are ineffective, right? Some emotional eating stuff, usually at night, like I'll grab a bag, I'll have some chips or just like do some stuff that's just unnecessary. Right. And so it's just a pattern. And so I asked in that moment, like, Lord, where, like, what are you telling me about this? And I just got a visualization of me as a kid, like eating Funyuns, but as a coping mechanism to deal with stress and pain, using food to be able to cope with that. It's kind of a cool little visualization.
The coping connects back to that comfort thing we were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah, totally. Love it, man. There's something powerful. There's like we talked about at breakfast, man. There's just so many men that love Jesus and are still trapped. They're not living in freedom. And the freedom that Christ has available for them, right? Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
That's my favorite verse.
Yeah, such a good verse, right? It's so profound, and it may seem like it's not true, right? On the outside, it's like we were talking about that. But people, they haven't surrendered. They haven't given their life. They haven't really done some of the work that's necessary for the Spirit to be able to work fully in them. To give them the peace, the joy, the kindness, the love, all the things, all the fruits of the Spirit that they're searching for.
Absolutely.
So I love your work, right, with supporting men on stepping into freedom, right? That's our mission at Rock. We want to help guys level up in freedom. Like, and we do that through events and experiences, right? You do that through counseling and one-on-one and some powerful work.
It's good to be in the fight with you, alongside you. This is awesome. We speak the same language, got the same mission, so I'm fired up.
So good. Well, anything as we kind of close out, what's we're just, for the guys listening to this podcast, what's one thing that if guys are looking to create more, to become healthier as a human being, I would say even emotionally, what's a starting point?
The simplest thing I know is to go back to that 60 seconds of silence thing that I talked about. It doesn't take a whole lot of your time. It's going to be uncomfortable at first, but man, if you can give that gift to yourself or make that investment in yourself, just get 60 seconds today and then build it to 90 seconds the next day, because so much of your brain really does know how to heal itself. You just got to give it the space. It's like the phones and everything else that distracts us. Our brains need to rest. And we talked about this at breakfast. The analogy is if you do curls constantly, your muscle is never going to regrow bigger, because working out just tears it down. You got to actually rest your biceps to let them grow. It's the same thing with our mind. If we're constantly looking at something on the phone or listening to something or talking to somebody, our brain is always having to work. So if we can just give it rest, even in small doses, because your brain won't really know what to do with the rest at first, because it's just so foreign to it, but start to build it. And if you build that habit and do it for 28 straight days, and if you don't feel better, then email me and we'll figure out what the real thing is, because I've never met anybody who doesn't feel noticeably different after doing that for 28 straight days.
Great. And where's the best place for people to reach you?
Rugged Counseling on all the different platforms. There's a podcast on YouTube and social media stuff. There's a book coming eventually in February, I think. So, but answer those same questions for our folks. What's one thing you would leave, and then how do we find you?
What's one thing I would leave them with?
Yeah.
For guys that are looking to level up and become the best versions of themselves, especially, the desire, I would say that one of the best, a worthy ambition would be doing our best to live a whole, healed life as a man. So what does that look like? It looks like reading books, listening to podcasts, and having a desire to be whole in the way that we operate.
Yeah.
And so God will reveal the areas that we need to level up in. And when we have those, like what I talked about, the 6 keys, right? We go find some people, find some associations, like start to do some of this work to start to live. Because what I've found, especially for the men of faith listening to this, is that God desires us to live an excellent life so that people will follow us and we can lead them to Christ.
Yeah.
Right? So when we live an excellent life, God is glorified and people come to Christ if we're representing Christ well. And so I think the better we live a life, the more healed and whole and wholesome we become, the more profoundly it impacts the kingdom, and it brings heaven on earth, right?
Yes.
We have this misconception that we're just all waiting to go to heaven. Dude, no, the goal, right, on earth as it is in heaven,
yes, sir.
Right? The goal is to bring heaven on earth and to bring goodness. So God wins when there's more good than there is evil on earth.
Right.
So it's a battle. Like I used to think, like the goal is just to get as many salvations as possible. It's like, nope. That's a goal.
Sure.
But man, Christ came not just for our salvation, for us to go to heaven. Christ came so that we could live heaven on earth.
Yes.
So that we could be freed from sin. So we get to live that out and practice living that out. And so what we do, right, helping more men. So I think having that goal is, hey, I want Christ to be glorified through my life is one of the most worthy goals us as men could live is, hey, Lord, refine me with that fire. Help me to live a life that glorifies you and practicing that each day. Yeah. So I think that's a worthy, and we're going to fail, we're going to miss it, but that's a worthy ambition.
Oh yeah. We got to have a mission that's bigger than ourselves. And there's no better mission than that.
Yeah. So for us at riseupkings.com, right. And then Skylar, Skylar Lewis on the different social profiles. And yeah, it's good stuff, man. That was a fun conversation. I really enjoyed that.
Me too. Yeah, this is awesome. We got to keep it going.
100%.
Yeah.